Today on Investigate TV Plus, a newborn given just weeks to live makes medical history.
So Owen will be the first human, and he said yes.
I'm Tisha Pell.
And I'm Lee Zurich. We take an in-depth look at his rare heart defect, his parents' decision, and the groundbreaking surgery to save his life.
Plus, search and recovery.
It's like a house fire when you go in, zero visibility. You basically use all of your senses.
We take a deep dive with firefighters as they learn to navigate murky waters to bring grieving families closure.
And an Air Force veteran who suffered a major health setback.
The goal is just to live the rest of my life as best I can.
Inspires others to aim high.
In-depth stories that inform and inspire. You're watching Investigate TV Plus. The promise of a new life. You'll hear many parents say it doesn't matter if they have a boy or a girl as long as their baby is healthy. But nothing can prepare them for the shock of discovering something's wrong with their unborn baby's heart.
About 40,000 babies are born in the United States each year with a congenital heart defect, and 1 in 4 of those infants will have a defect so critical they generally need surgery in the first year of life.
Regardless of the severity of the baby's heart condition, pediatric cardiologists say the news can be difficult for parents to grasp.
It's pretty stressful. Whether it's their first child or their third or fourth child, it's still a very difficult conversation to have. Most people don't understand these defects, but whenever you start talking about the heart, everybody's worried about it, rightly so. Complex things can be really tough on families.
For one family in North Carolina, doctors found a problem with their baby's heart before he was born.
Owen Monroe was so sick, he wasn't expected to live long enough to undergo a traditional heart transplant. So one of his doctors attempted an innovative surgery in hopes of saving Owen's life. Owen Monroe is a toddler who is all heart.
He loves to be outside. He loves bath time. He's starting to love the pool, which is exciting.
His parents, Taylor and Nick, have big dreams for their little guy.
Really, he's going to be an engineer. He's just practicing now.
But Owen's future didn't always seem this optimistic. In 2022, before he came into the world, doctors discovered a problem during a routine ultrasound.
I was 20 weeks pregnant and we were getting my anatomy scan. We thought everything was normal. We had a couple people come in during that scan, and I knew, just because I'm a healthcare professional, that the more people that come into my room during the scan, it's probably not good news.
Taylor's assessment was right. The outlook for her unborn son was not good.
We think that it might be a congenital heart defect called truncus arteriosus. It is 1 in 33,000, so it's very rare.
Truncus arteriosus is a life-threatening condition that creates one large blood vessel leading out of the heart instead of 2 smaller ones. Having only one large blood vessel means the oxygen-poor and oxygen-rich blood mix, which reduces the amount of oxygen delivered to the body. Babies born with this condition usually experience heart failure within the first few weeks of life. As for Owen, the Monroes were told he would need several major heart surgeries before he reached puberty, and Taylor's labor would need to be induced at 39 weeks because of his condition.
He was born just before midnight on April 5th. We got to hold him for maybe 5-10 minutes, if that, before they had to whisk him away to the pediatric intensive care unit.
The Monroes knew Owen would need his first heart surgery within days, but just hours after his birth, Nick received another gut punch.
One of the doctors just comes up to me randomly and is like, oh, he's going to need a full heart transplant. And so that was the first time I heard about it.
8 hours after he was born.
8 hours after he was born.
Owen was immediately placed on the transplant list. The doctors we spoke to say it can take up to 6 months before a newborn gets a new heart. But
Owen didn't have that time. He had what we thought was maybe a couple weeks.
Dr. Joseph Turek is the chief of pediatric heart surgery at Duke University Medical Center in Durham, North Carolina. Dr. Turek knew Owen's prognosis was grim and suggested a revolutionary approach to save his life.
So what we do is we take a heart that has been donated that's not going to be used for a full heart transplant, and we take the valves from that heart.
That innovation is called a partial heart transplant. Dr. Turek had never performed the procedure on an infant, but he was ready to head into uncharted territory with Owen.
They were brave about this and said, you know, if this is his best chance and also this can help other children, let's do it.
Then I asked, how many times have you done this before? And he said, I've done it on 5 piglets, and the pigs are doing great.
Dr. Turek says the ultimate goal of the partial heart transplant is to have the implanted valve grow along with the child.
Once a valve is too small for you, it's not going to do the job that you need it to do.
Dr. Les Hickson is a pediatric cardiologist in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, who did not treat Owen. Dr. Hickson echoes Dr. Turek, explaining infants and children who undergo traditional valve replacement surgery endure multiple grueling procedures.
Each one of those surgeries carries risk. And then certainly the more you go into a patient's chest for surgery, there's more scarring, and so it makes the surgeries down the road even more complicated for the surgeons.
At just 5 pounds and less than 3 weeks old, Owen underwent the 8-hour surgery to repair his tiny heart.
When he opened Owen up and looked at his heart, it was way worse than he expected. Like he thought that he would have more time, but Owen probably had like maybe 10 days left by the time he had the surgery, because his heart had enlarged that much.
Good job.
Good job.
Good job.
But Owen defied expectations. He recovered from the surgery and was allowed to leave the hospital 7 weeks later.
Oh, there you go. There's some eyes.
In the following months, his checkups showed his heart was functioning well and his heart valves weren't leaking.
Yeah.
The Monroes are forever grateful to Dr. Turek, who they consider a member of their family.
We don't really call him Dr. Turek. We should, but he's Uncle Joe to us.
And Dr. Turek sees Owen as more than just a patient.
I actually zoomed in on his during his first birthday party. I mean, we're forever bonded.
Owen has very few physical reminders of the pioneering surgery that saved his life. He takes an immunosuppressant drug, but his doctors say there's a chance down the road he'll no longer need it. In the meantime, Owen's parents continue to watch him grow and thrive.
I just really think he just knows he got a second chance and he's really happy to just be alive. That's so cliche and cheesy to say, but honestly, like, he's such a good kid.
The Monroes say they have another family who made the selfless decision to donate their child's organs to thank for Owen's second chance.
As of August 2024, there have been more than 15 partial heart transplants performed in the world, with a majority done at Duke.
Dr. Turek says the partial heart transplant paved the way for another procedure called a domino heart transplant. That's where one heart is able to save 2 lives.
During a domino heart transplant, a patient who has healthy valves but is in need of a stronger heart muscle receives a full heart transplant. Their healthy valves are then donated to another patient in need, creating a domino effect.
Remembering a legacy of wisdom and selflessness.
Never about me, it's about everybody else. That's my philosophy.
Ahead, we take a look back at a grandfather who appreciated the blessings in his life and inspired others to do the same.
But first, firefighters dive into the dark waters on a murky but meaningful mission.
We get them and get them back to their people, it gets a win. It's the best we can do.
We take a look at the underwater training that offers victims and their families the best hope. They often go into black, frigid waters to help families during their darkest time.
They're called rescue divers, and they plunge into the depths to recover loved ones who slipped underwater, never to resurface on their own.
Reporter Robinson goes on a training mission with divers in Southeast Louisiana to find out how they navigate this very personal mission.
The waters of Louisiana, a sportsman's dream that can quickly turn into a nightmare. Murky, sometimes fast-moving water with unknown dangers beneath the surface. time is of the essence if you slip under. Depending on the temperatures, you have seconds or minutes to be saved.
The sad truth of our area is, in 15 minutes is probably going to be a drowning.
Maybe like right in here in between, maybe.
Okay.
But I'm not sure.
For victims and their family members, Mark Michaud is often the best hope.
If we've got 12 feet of water out there, when a woman fills up with water, it's going to be pretty much 12 feet. You don't have a 100% accurate location, so if the angle of descent is 12 feet because it's 12 feet deep, let's figure a 20-foot pattern.
On the banks of Bayou Bonfouca, Michaud trained Slidell Fire District 1 first responders to think like he's been thinking for nearly 40 years.
And I'll hang on to him before I drop him to make sure we're where we want to be.
With hundreds of miles of bayous, streams, and shoreline, southeast Louisiana has more water than just about anywhere.
Get you to see if you can go down.
Michaud and his Southeast Louisiana Underwater Search and Recovery Foundation teaches first responders across the region techniques he's refined over the years.
We've moved left and right with the witness to know if we're too far this way or too far that way.
Michaud explains why getting good information from witnesses or family members who are often in shock is key.
Number one, you find your witness if you have one. You get that witness to exactly where they were when they saw the person go under, and you put your people there.
Since water is ever changing, it's important to take detailed notes and mark off locations.
Just sitting down a second and writing stuff down instead of making it a hurry would have brought this girl home so much sooner.
During the first hour of any search, Michaud's goal is rescue.
There's not much clear water around here. It's all brackish.
Mark Michaud says these types of searches rely on feel more than sight. Michaud says it's critical to mark off the search area to make sure you stay on course so that divers don't get disoriented by wind or water movement.
All right, drop your weight, Brett. Now you'll start sinking.
In Bayou Bonfouca, firemen turned divers mark their search by holding a rope, using a grid to cover every inch of the murky bottom.
I didn't feel 100% because it's been a little bit since I've been in murky water. So I think the more we do it, the better we're going to be, the better mindset we're going to have.
After nearly 20 minutes, Cameron Murphy is the first one to discover one of 2 rescue dummies.
It's like a house fire when you go in, zero visibility. You basically use all of your senses to navigate your way through it and hopefully not have to find a victim, but if you do, like, you lean back to your training.
Michaud lost his own son several years ago and is now on a murky mission to help others deal with their own loss by helping them recover loved ones lost.
We get them and get them back to their people, it gets a win. It's the best we can do.
Michaud's foundation is now assisting with underwater searches from Texas to Mississippi. You can learn more about blackwater searches by going to InvestigateTV.com and typing Dark Descent into the search bar.
He was inspired to move forward despite a major health setback. How this retired airman found the passion and encouragement to take on a new mission. But first, he was a guiding force for his family, and he created handcrafted canoes despite health and physical challenges later in life.
We were inspired by him, and we hope you will be too. Just ahead, we celebrate the legacy of Paul LaRose.
Maya Angelou said, "A great soul serves everyone all the time. A great soul never dies. It brings us together again and again." Such a soul was a Vermont man named Paul LaRose.
Paul was a craftsman who used his skill not only to create beautiful canoes, but also to lift up his grandson after his family suffered a heartbreaking loss.
Reporter Joe Carroll shares Paul's simple message about living and giving back.
In the spring of 2024, I had the pleasure of interviewing a man named Paul LaRose in a small town here in Vermont. Despite illness and the tragic death of one of his grandsons, Paul continued to inspire his family and his community with creations and words of wisdom. Unfortunately, Paul passed away unexpectedly shortly after I interviewed him. I reached his family to make sure they were okay with us sharing a bit of Paul's legacy with more people. His daughter responded saying She would like more people to know her father because, in her words, we could all use a little good news.
From the outside, Paul LaRose's building reveals few clues to what lies inside. From a homemade exercise machine to keep his heart pumping, to a couple $1 million worth of woodworking equipment. Paul knows his craft. He started making high-end custom carpentry back in the 50s. Now retired, he hopes his grandson, Austin Jacobs, is the future.
He's probably going to take the business over, I hope.
Paul watches every move as his grandson masters the machines.
He likes to call it follow the leader. I follow him around all day. He points, I go.
The 88-year-old has had health issues, from a heart valve replacement to a stroke.
You want to hold that there, Gramp?
And complications from diabetes has made him a double amputee.
You got it.
But it hasn't stopped Paul from making canoes with Austin. The two work side by side pretty much every day.
Good.
Yeah.
Was it difficult to lose your legs?
No.
A lot of people would be surprised by that.
Okay. You got to live every day to its fullest. And don't let these things get back to you or get you down.
What Paul now makes in the shop, he mostly gives away, including 14 canoes.
It's never about me, it's about everybody else. That's my philosophy.
Building the boats has also been therapy for both Paul and Austin.
Inseparable, some would say.
Paul's grandson Taylor, Austin's older brother, died suddenly 4 years ago from a drug overdose.
He was my number one.
Mr. T is what Grandpa always called him growing up. He was his right-hand man.
You got to accept it. As hard as it is, you got to accept it.
It's been hard for all of us, for sure.
This one's pretty special.
Paul and Taylor were working on this canoe
That it was.
when Taylor passed away. Austin completed the canoe with his grandpa.
And gave it to my mother for when we finished it.
Since Taylor's death, Austin and Paul have bonded like glue.
You ready, Austin?
Yep. I enjoy spending my days with him. It's a godsend, for sure. Just getting it centered up. He means the world to me. Can learn a lot from him. He's got years and years of knowledge.
Knowledge Paul plans to pass on with the hope a new generation will revive a family business.
Done.
Follow the leader.
In his obituary, his family wrote, "A day not working is a wasted day, and that a handshake is as good as your word. No need for formal contracts." Paul's daughter says she admired her father so very much, and we hope you admire him too. Meantime, she asks that you keep her family in your thoughts. In Burlington, Vermont, I'm Joe Carroll.
You can't help but to feel a sense of loss from seeing that story, but I'm glad that Austin got a chance to work with his grandfather and learn from him, and they could be there together.
And look, I think the family wanted that story shown so more people knew what Paul was really like. Special man, for sure.
Absolutely.
All right.
We'll be right back. Many times, who we are is attached to what we do for a living.
And for Gary Keller, his time in the Air Force as a master sergeant was defining. That is until he suffered a life-changing medical emergency.
Reporter Dave Allgood shows us how a bow and arrow and the love of his wife inspired Gary to transform.
In the world of archery, it takes a sharp eye, a steady arm, and keen concentration to shoot a straight arrow. And Gary Keller has all that, and even this cool tattoo.
Keep going forward. An arrow never goes backwards.
But it's his walk that might give away a bit about who he is today.
Supposedly, something happened. I don't remember. I suffered a pretty big stroke.
The Air Force Master Sergeant was living his best life fishing for halibut with his then fiancée Dee. This is a picture a day before the stroke.
We were engaged. I wasn't gonna leave him.
I mean, where I'm at today is because of her.
Dee married Gary after his stroke, retiring from the Anchorage Police Department to take care of him.
Gary's an amazing guy.
She's my inspiration, my biggest fan. She's the one who really got me involved in this program.
That program is the Department of Defense Warrior Games, where after only 4 years and a massive stroke, Gary will be competing for the second time in swimming, wheelchair races, and archery. You see, Dee saw his passion and drive alive.
He's out of rehab in the backyard with his walker holding the bow, and I'm like, oh, this guy, he's gonna go far. I gotta support him and be his biggest cheerleader, which I am.
And when Gary was recovering in quarantine in 2020, they made these signs which read simply,
Gary Keller, stay strong.
Gary saw all the support from his hospital window. He was alive, but life would be different.
When I was medically retired, I felt like I lost a sense of purpose.
Really difficult, a lot of depression. It was hard to communicate, hard to talk.
But it's love, determination, and goals that have stoked the fire.
Hey, if you can do it, I can do it.
He's come so far.
So Gary walks, even if it's with a limp, and he deals with headaches, but he's found a new tribe in his Wounded Warrior world.
It's brought the passion back.
And Gary is competing for a lot of reasons, but maybe it's not about hitting the bullseye these days.
Also, goals is just to live the rest of my life as best I can.
Maybe it's about just being a little better than yesterday.
He's unstoppable.
It's a dream come true.
In July 2024, Gary competed in the Warrior Games in Florida, and we're happy to say he won gold for archery and silver in the men's 50-meter freestyle for swimming. And that's it for us on Investigate TV Plus. I'm Tisha Powell.
And I'm Lee Zurich. Thanks for watching.
On the next Investigate TV Plus, who's responsible for clearing trees from power lines?
It's overwhelming, it's disappointing, and it's frightening.
Our investigation discovered it's confusing for homeowners who've dealt with outages and even fires. We take an in-depth look at who's responsible for removing this electrical hazard and the efforts to clear the confusion.